I kept trying to believe I was worrying too much, but the enemy was right here, in front of me the whole time. Jiwu's voice cut through the room. Die. A black flash of light closed in on my chest. The assassin was Jiwu, one of Masayuki's own party members, and she was aiming for my life. AI Anime and Manga presents. Hey everyone, before we jump into this ambush, please take a second to like this video, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. It helps more anime and manga fans find the series. And Patreon supporters get early access while helping cover the narration, subtitles, thumbnails, and rendering that keep this project moving. Now, let's rewind to the moment I realized something was wrong. Well, things were pretty darn lonely down here again. Shion and Diablo were out fighting this time, so it was only Benimaru and me now. I glanced at him and asked, "We can win, right?"
No problems there, no. I didn't see any movements from the Imperial soldiers, but there's a flurry of activity among the leadership, it looks like. That straggler must have reported on events in the labyrinth. If I were them, and he told me he was the only survivor, I'd be out of there in a hurry. Well, I wouldn't put us in this situation in the first place, but you understand what I mean.
His classic fearless smile was on his face. I had to agree with him. Being out of contact with my people gets me nervous enough as it is, so I probably wouldn't let it happen unless we came up with some countermeasures. To be honest, I wasn't expecting this plan of ours to be nearly as successful as it turned out to be. No matter what it is, it never pays to be greedy, huh? I said.
Indeed. War and looting go hand in hand, but it's forbidden in our military at least.
Excellent. In war, the side to lose their composure first usually loses. But once your desires get stoked a little bit, it's easy to get too heated up. We took advantage of that habit in this campaign and it worked scarily well. It was a good lesson for us too. Better not fall into the same trap they did. We were on our way back to the control center discussing this, when a possibility occurred to me. Hey, you and I are the only ones here, right?
Yes.
Well, if there happened to be any enemies still hiding in the labyrinth, they'd never let an opportunity like this go to waste, would they? What do you think of that?
Oh, come now. There's no way anyone could time a move so precisely like that.
Yeah, I was getting too suspicious. Even Raphael had signed off on the labyrinth's current safety. Being paranoid all day would accomplish nothing, so I decided to leave the thought at that. Continually dredging up the same thoughts in your mind is a great way to make yourself anxious, after all. But I just had a bad feeling for a little while. For a moment, my thoughts snagged on Raphael. Like, you know. It's not that I doubt Raphael. I just couldn't help but wonder if it overlooked something. Raphael answered inside my mind.
Understood. All potentially suspicious subjects have been identified.
Yeah, that I trust in. But what if it's someone I know really well? Like Ellen's gang, for example. I trust all of them, so if they ever betrayed me, I'd suffer a whole lot for it. But these were still all just what-ifs. There was absolutely no reason for Ellen and her friends to turn traitor. We'd built up a lot of trust in each other by then. I could firmly say that they were perfectly fine, but how could we assume that the same was true for everybody else too? The thought hung there for a beat. I knew my staff officers were fine. Folks like Mule Meal were cutting out sleep to give their all for me. There was no way I could start doubting him. Apart from them, I suppose there were the people I'd gotten to know outside my own government, the assorted visitors who'd come to stay with us since the Founders Festival. For example, Masayuki came running from Labyrinth City waving up front. Rimuru! Oh, no way. The guy waving was Masayuki, someone I knew well, and he had two others with him, a warrior and a wizard. Jinrai and Bernie, right? I think those were their names. Those two still kinda held a grudge against me, so we hadn't talked much. I sincerely doubt it, I murmured to Benimaru, but you don't think Masayuki might start targeting me, do you?
Oh no. That's really worrying too much, I would say.
Yeah. Benimaru dismissed the concern. I sure didn't want to start suspecting Masayuki. And by the way, hadn't Ghidorah mentioned that Masayuki was the spitting image of Emperor Ghidorah or something? Nah, it had to just be a goofy coincidence. Raphael supplied the answer before I could dwell on it.
Understood. After careful examination of the Empire's history and other assorted elements, the chances of the subject Masayuki and Emperor Ludora being the same person are 0%.
Right, of course. Feeling a bit relieved, I called out to him, "Hey Masayuki, something up?" Masayuki looked like he was carrying the entire city on his shoulders. Something up? Kind of a lot, man. You naming me an army leader out of nowhere has given me a ton of trouble. Even the vampires were asking me if they could temporarily join in. I don't even know what to do with them. And there's just been a huge amount of activity down here, you know? Everyone in the city's starting to ask what's going on. Having so many volunteers at once, Masayuki explained, made it hard to deal with them in any organized fashion. And us sending out an army like I just did must have made all those volunteers clamor for some action of their own. I didn't think he was exaggerating at all. The disheartened look on his face told me that much. Plus, if Masayuki was trying to trick me, Raphael would have warned me about it long ago. So no point doubting him. Well, most of the volunteers are still staying in the towns they live in, right? Yes, Masayuki admitted, but the city of Rimuru, formerly on the surface, was now evacuated to the dungeon's provisionary floor 101. The sun and stars were as visible as always down there, so a lot of people were surprisingly oblivious to current events. The war was already underway, but some citizens must have thought we were still in a standoff at some distant vista. The 20,000 members of the volunteer army were entrusted with maintaining security in the city during this state of emergency. But thanks to the pervading calm across floor 101, they didn't have much to do. Masayuki himself, however, was still real busy, it looked like. His main problem at the moment had to do with the researchers living in Labyrinth City. They were primarily meant to be office staff, but most of the people Luminous sent were calamity-grade threats in a fight. Overcomers was the term for them, apparently, but they all had a lot of free time on their hands. Many had come to directly speak with Masayuki to see if they could get a little action in this war, like it was some kind of fun carnival. Bacchus, sent in from the Crusaders, and Jiwu, one of Masayuki's old party companions, were currently soothing them over, he said. But they couldn't keep them under control forever, so he was begging me to do something about it. Maybe the paranoid part of my mind told me they were trying to instigate Masayuki into starting some big commotion so they could come after me. It was possible, but if so, I really thought they would have taken action earlier. That possibility didn't seem too likely either. I really am thinking too much. Deep breath. That sure does sound rough. Masayuki leaned in. Yeah, doesn't it? So please, lend us a hand here. Don't worry, this war's gonna be over real soon, so just keep giving him the runaround until then, okay? No, Masayuki protested. You can't just make it sound easy like that, Rimuru. Masayuki kept complaining, a hangdog look on his face. But nobody should underestimate my ability to ignore serious problems tossed in my lap. This sounded like a lot of trouble, and I just didn't have the time to get involved. All this paranoid doubting had tired me out, and I really wanted to get back to my control center. Then Shuna could pour me some tea, maybe prepare a slice of delicious cake, and all would be well. Masayuki caught on immediately. You're trying to run from me, aren't you, Rimuru? I gave him the finest evasive laugh I had. Don't laugh at me. Okay, maybe this was a pointless argument, but I was demonstrating a masterclass on giving people the runaround. Masayuki should really learn from this so he can reach my own lofty heights. That was what I was hoping for, and that was why I was currently shoving him away from me. If that's your only business, I need to get back, all right? Masayuki pressed me one more time. You're positive the war's going to end soon? I'm hoping to wrap it up today, actually. Well, we haven't done anything, so it hardly even seems real at all. But now you're really fighting? I could empathize with that. That's kind of my ideal, not letting the general public know at all. Pretty much, yeah. So take it easy, okay? With a grin, I did my best to convince Masayuki to see things my way. That ought to solve the problem. Now to duck back inside and enjoy some strawberry shortcake. Then Jinrai, who I'd assumed was just along for the ride, cut in sharply. Whoa, wait a sec. Masayuki's looking out for you, so I've been holding back. But we haven't given up on defeating you, all right? And now you're forgetting all about that and trying to take advantage of him? What kind of a joke is this? Just when I thought the problem was solved, a new one arose. Aw, come on, I said. That was just a misunderstanding. Take advantage of you? There's no need to make it sound so disgraceful. I attempted to make excuses, but wasn't doing a good job at it. I was trying to take advantage of him after all. But then I received some unexpected backup. Masayuki turned on Jinrai. Jinrai, that's out of order. Rimuru's working so hard for everybody in town right now. Thanks, man. I'll let you have some cake later. And as I flashed him a grateful smile, Jinrai immediately stopped complaining. I'm sure he wasn't happy about it, but at least he was tolerant enough to bottle it up. He was a lot more mature than his face suggested. So that was the end of it, or so I thought. But life's never that easy. Bernie, usually observing from a step behind, chose this moment to get all worked up. No, Jinrai's right, Masayuki. Heroes and demon lords are fated to clash with each other, so quit holding back forever, and let's just take this guy down as soon as we can. With a sigh, I pondered how I'd calm him down. Bernie began casting a spell. If you won't do it, then I will. Cut me a break, I thought. Then things got serious. Bernie invoked it aloud. Holy field. You're kidding me, I almost caught myself yelling. That spell was extremely tough to handle, much less solo. I knew Bernie was an otherworlder and probably decent at magic, but I didn't think he held sway over that kind of advanced holy stuff. Like, was he even serious? Raphael's warning hit like a siren.
Murderous intent detected. The subject Bernie is an enemy.
Then I finally realized what was going on. I thought it was impossible. I kept trying to believe that I was worrying too much about it. But the enemy was right here, in front of me, the whole time. And then someone moved even faster than I did. There was a clear, high-pitched toying. It was caused by the collision between Benimaru's sword and Bernie's blade of light. Jinrai stared. Bernie, what are... You can fight with a sword? It must have been the first time Bernie wielded a sword in front of Jinrai and the others, which meant he had been hiding it from his supposed friends for who knows how long. Bernie scoffed at him. I'm not stupid enough to reveal my hand that easily. The look on his face said it all to me. If he was gonna do this, he wanted to throw every skill he had toward the effort. Jinrai's shock curdled into fury. Damn it! So you tricked both me and Masayuki? Tricked? Bernie sounded almost bored. Stop making it sound so mean. I just used you to get closer to the Demon Lord. You used us? Yeah, Masayuki was a helpful connection. Thanks to him, I've been granted a golden opportunity. Much appreciated. He was crossing swords with Benimaru, but Bernie was chatting with Jinrai like they were chilling at the bar. I was listening in as well, so maybe I shouldn't talk, but it looked like he was hiding one hell of a lot of skill. Benimaru, let me help you.
No, I'll take care of him. Keep a close eye on our surroundings, Sir Rimuru.
I was about to join the fray, but Benimaru stopped me. Trusting him to his word, I stepped up my vigilance. Even in the midst of this, Bernie and Jinrai kept talking. Jinrai's voice shook with anger. Masayuki was just a connection to you? Don't give me that crap. Bernie didn't even flinch. Come on, like you never thought of it that way. You know he's really not strong at all, right? He's just bluffing his way through life. That made the blood drain from Masayuki's face. Oops, busted. But I probably shouldn't joke because this was a life or death situation for him. Then Jinrai surprised me all over again. Well, so what? Jinrai shot back. I don't care if he's bluffing or not. Masayuki's an incredible man. He's never failed us, not even once. Oh, he knew? I guess he saw the guy for what he was after all. A bluffer, yeah, but definitely a lot more than that. I should probably rethink my opinion of Jinrai, although Masayuki was giving him a hurt puppy dog look now. Bernie, it seemed, wasn't a fan of this reaction. Shh. Bernie's irritation rose with his voice. So you knew and you still stuck with him? And you actually respect this total loser? Don't make me laugh, but I was the really annoyed one here. What's so bad about bluffing? I'm bluffing my way through my life too. Masayuki stared at me. Rimuru? Well, aren't I? I used to be an anonymous face at the office. I wasn't living in some world full of heroes and demon lords, but I still tried my best every day because I had no other choice, and I wouldn't want oblivious idiots like you to laugh at me about it. Masayuki silently nodded. You... Jinrai glanced at me. Even he was looking a little confused now. I kept going. I mean, isn't it obvious? If I don't keep telling myself that what I'm doing is right, I'd never be able to be king of this realm or whatever. Fired up from shouting, I walked over to Masayuki's side, slowly, so I didn't alarm Bernie while he was crossing swords with Benimaru. Everybody's doing their best just to keep living, you know. That's why I'm doing what I can to create a world where we can all live happily together. Masayuki's done a lot to help out with that. He's done so much for me, and I'm not gonna sit here and allow you to make fun of him. I stood in front of Masayuki as I admonished Bernie. Hearing that, Jinrai deeply nodded. So did Masayuki. Masayuki's past panic had vanished without a trace. He spoke directly to Bernie. Bernie, were you planning to use me like this from the beginning? That's what I said, didn't I? Bernie kept his distance from Benimaru, who was in front of me, sizing him up. Under the effects of the holy field, Benimaru wasn't able to tap his full powers, so instead of trying to finish Bernie off in one fell swoop, he was taking more of a wait-and-see approach. Masayuki asked the next question carefully. Did Yuki order you to? Huh? Oh, right. Bernie let out a smug little breath. Well, I could explain all that to you, but what's in it for me? He was still lording it over us, but at least he was still talking. Maybe, with the holy field in place, he had no doubts about his superior position. Raphael's report cut through my thoughts at frightening speed.
Negative. He has some sort of aim in mind. Data confirmed. There is another subject who is a member of Masayuki's party. After searching for data on this subject, her presence was not found in the labyrinth. However, there is no record of her ever leaving it. This is...
Judging by how Raphael wasn't bothering to organize any of it for me in advance, it must have thought this was a pretty major emergency. If I recall, there was one more member of Masayuki's gang, Jiwu. She was helping Bacchus smooth things over with the overcomers. Raphael confirmed it.
Confirmed. A mass murder has occurred in the laboratory on floor 100. The subject Bacchus and several overcomers have been slaughtered. Their souls have been put in protective custody as an emergency measure.
That's serious news. I wouldn't know about Bacchus, but each overcomer down there was supposed to be an over-eye monster. It was really hard to believe Jiwu could kill so many of them in the tiny sliver of time since she left Masayuki's side. Defeating an overcomer taking pains to defend himself was an extremely difficult task for anyone. They all had ultra-speed regeneration and an artist's palette of other special skills. With Benimaru's firepower or Zijian's incredible evolution, I could see it, but no way any of the other dungeon marvels, Kumara included, could pull that off. And that wasn't the only issue. If we weren't receiving any response from Jiwu at the moment, that couldn't be ignored. I mean, Raphael was keeping tabs on every single thing going on in the labyrinth, wasn't it? If it couldn't find her inside the labyrinth, that meant Jiwu was... Chloe's voice reached my mind a split second before the thought communication came along. Mr. Tempest! The next moment, I used Mind Accelerate to slow down time for me. Did I respond first, or was it Raphael? Either way, it wound up saving my life. Jiwu's hidden voice was cold and close. Die. A black flash of light closed in on my chest. Someone, definitely Jiwu, had taken a shot at me from what seemed to be a perfectly concealed hiding place. I had fallen on the spot and rolled away, putting aside all dignity and royal personage, and that helped me escape that deadly blade. It was all thanks to that warning, one issued by Chloe, the little girl wearing a mask. She was back to her old habits with that Mr. Tempest stuff, but there was no time to poke fun at her about it. Really, this was a pretty bad situation. I had been doing my best to keep a watchful eye on the surroundings, and Raphael was staying vigilant as well. If Jiwu had managed to get through that security net, there could have been only one way. The assassin must have had an ultimate skill too. I had finally gotten my eyes on the assassin just now, and it was definitely Jiwu. Her face was expressionless as always, but the atmosphere she presented was a total 180 from before. She was cold and sharpened. It wasn't an exaggeration to call her a whole other person. Jiwu pointed the black blade extending from the pendant in her hand at Chloe. What a surprise. You've been tailing me in secret? Her assassination attempt had failed, but Jiwu wasn't upset about it. Chloe answered from behind her mask. If you're all going to fight out in the open like this, of course we're going to notice. You're a talented little girl, aren't you? Jiwu observed. Chloe bristled. I don't need you telling me that, and I'm not a little girl. With that, Chloe transformed into an adult woman. She took out Moonlight, the god-class rapier, and focused it straight at Jiwu. Now we were graced with the presence of Chloe the hero in all her masked glory. Bernie clicked his tongue at Jiwu. Psh, we had the perfect chance served up and you just had to ruin it. Way to blow everything, Jiwu. Jiwu calmly replied. I'm sorry, I was trying to make sure nobody interfered with us, but I didn't realize there was this ambush going on. These two were definitely acquainted. They must both be assassins, quite skilled ones, sent by someone who wanted me dead. Both were an even match for each other too, which meant Bernie might very well have an ultimate skill of his own. He glared at Benimaru as Jiwu and Chloe raised their swords against each other. I was standing in front of Masayuki and Jinrai, protecting them as I saw what unfolded. Bernie shifted his grip. Well, no helping it now. If we've blown our cover, there's no reason to hide our full abilities either. Jiwu agreed. I agree with you on that. We need to rub these enemies out as soon as we can. Bernie and Jiwu focused their strength into the pendants that were the sources of their weapons. They reacted by shining even brighter than before. It looked familiar to me. Ah, so you're both Imperial Guardians? I asked. Once he was fully equipped, Bernie nodded his assent, rolling his eyes as he did. Guess you've already started fighting my compatriots, huh? But you better not shuffle me in with the other Imperial Knights. He wasn't kidding either. In fact, he seemed to be hiding some pretty extraordinary abilities. Jiwu cut off the chatter. Enough chit-chat. Let's just kill them already. Jiwu had a unique set of armor on as well. Its design was similar to what I saw before, but this set was jet black, with a sheen like lonely stars floating in the darkness. Legend class armor, I assumed, and probably just a hair's width away from God class. Bernie had the same gear. His armor was yellow in hue, but performance-wise it was on par with Jiwu, and I was sure the skills of the wearers were similar to the specs of their armor. Masayuki's voice went hollow. Jiwu, you feel that way about me too? The forlorn question from Masayuki was greeted with a cold stare. Jiwu answered him without warmth. Of course, I only protected you because that was my mission. It was a frank, direct statement, nothing more to it than that. And if I could recognize it as such, I couldn't imagine how much it hurt Masayuki. I really wanted to offer him some condolences, but now wasn't the time. Benimaru, watch out, she's super strong. I'm positive she's hiding an ultimate skill.
An ultimate? You mean beyond a unique? Will it take more than hard work and perseverance for me to survive then?
Yeah, honestly, I don't think you can win.
Goodness. If you put it that way, Sir Rimuru, it's all the more depressing.
That was my pure, impartial evaluation, but Benimaru just gave it a wry grin. He still seemed pretty chill about this. Maybe he had some ideas of his own? Ultimate skills could only be defended with other ultimate skills. That was the absolute law of it, and I didn't think there was a way to get around that. But then again, this was the labyrinth. Even if worst came to worst, neither of us was going to die, so I decided to let Benimaru handle his own affairs. The same applied to Chloe. I mean, she's basically the most powerful hero in the world. She totally overwhelmed Veldora even, and that was without an ultimate skill. Admittedly, that was more the out-of-control Chronoa than Chloe, but either way, she's got tremendous skill in a fight. Plus, now she does have an ultimate skill, Yog-Sothoth, Lord of Time. I really didn't see her losing to Jiwu. If there was any concern, it was over whether she could actually control Yog-Sothoth, I suppose. So just for extra insurance, I sent an order over to Raphael.
Acknowledged. Beginning analysis of the enemy's possessed skill.
That should work, right? Thus, for now, I decided to watch the battle unfold, preparing myself to step in at any time if need be. Bernie was the first to react. Grasping his pendant, he funneled his strength into it once more. Then the pendant itself morphed, changing shape and turning into a spear. Bernie dropped down low, contempt in his voice. I've never shown you this before, but spear combat's actually my specialty. Let me give you a little show before you die. Without any spell casting, he invoked magic on his spear. This was Thunder Rain, a lightning-type magic. A ranged attack, essentially, but all its energy was focused entirely on that spear. Pretty neat move for sure, but not as much of a threat as I was imagining. Benimaru fought back, infusing dark flame into his own blade. The black flames entwined themselves around the crimson sword, giving off an enigmatic sparkle. Another fine move, one that put him so high among the monster hierarchy that his command abilities seemed like just a nice bonus in comparison. Then they both acted simultaneously. I thought Bernie was only a magic user, but his spear skills were incredible. All that bragging earlier really wasn't just for show. Still though, I was able to follow his movements with ease. What bothered me was that Predict Future Attack still hadn't activated for me, which meant...
Report. The subject Bernie's skill is preventing any interference.
I thought so. There was probably some kind of block on Jiwu too that prevented me from keeping up with her moves earlier. Both of them might have had a skill that protected them from any outside interference, which was pretty helpful for them. But what interested me more was what other sorts of skills they might have. Benimaru and Bernie were waging a pretty even battle. I saw no distress at all on Benimaru's face. He was keeping up with Bernie just fine. Bernie, meanwhile, was starting to look a tad irritated. Benimaru had more core strength and that was giving him an edge. With the difference in equipped battle gear, I still thought this was Bernie's fight to win, so I could get it if he was frustrated. Bernie taunted him. Got some fight in you, huh?
You're certainly a disappointment.
Benimaru's reply made Bernie visibly scowl. That must have been an affront to his pride because now he was glaring at Benimaru like he'd killed his parents. Bernie spun his spear around. How's a monster get off saying that to me? You gonna keep saying that once you get a taste of this? With that shout, he attempted to get out of Benimaru's range. Keeping himself both defended and at the ready to strike, he stepped back in order to attempt a finisher. But Benimaru wasn't about to let him. He easily closed the distance at once, expertly anticipating his moves. It was quite a sight. I knew Benimaru had been doing a little clandestine training of his own lately, but I had no idea he had grown to that level. If you asked me, I'd say his skills were even better than Hakuro's now. I mean, I thought Alberto was pretty fly with a sword, but there was no doubt in my mind that Benimaru surpassed him. And the way he controlled his dark flame, he wasn't letting that stuff sweep him away at all. It was truly his own to handle, and I was amazed by it. The unique skill Born Leader granted him complete control over his own power, and you couldn't not have been impressed by it. I asked him not long ago whether Zegian was stronger than him, but looking at him perform now, I wasn't so sure who was on top of whom any longer. Depending on how things went, the Goddess of Victory could have smiled at either one of them. Behind me, Jinrai breathed, "Wow." Masayuki, trying to keep his nerve, told him, "Let me just tell you right now, trying to fight power that's strong's just suicide, alright? And Rimuru's even stronger than that, so maybe try not to mess around with me so much going forward, okay?" Jinrai swallowed. "Sure thing, Masayuki." From their perspective, Benimaru and Bernie probably looked like a bunch of vague blurs in the air, jumping around in unpredictable directions. I'm sure they could tell how awesome they were anyway, but too bad for them, I guess. Personally, I had been using Uriel's absolute defense to protect them both from any stray bullets. Or I suppose stray explosive shockwaves. But that was actually a lot tougher than it seemed. Bernie's ultimate skill was applying itself to all his attacks, so if I wasn't careful, he could absolutely bust through absolute defense. I mean, it was really Raphael's problem and not mine, but still. But enough about the pair behind me. I was more concerned about how Benimaru's fight would turn out. Apparently, Bernie's finisher required him to be a certain distance away from his target to work. He'd been trying to push Benimaru away from him for a little while now, no longer trying to hide his frustration. Benimaru, meanwhile, was the very picture of calm composure, coolly cornering Bernie and ever so gradually starting to land real wounds on him. At this rate, I thought his victory was just a matter of time, but that turned out to be wishful thinking. In the face of Benimaru's onslaught, Bernie found himself thrown off balance. That momentary opening allowed Benimaru to slash him down with his dark flame-infused blade. That should have been fatal, but Bernie just smirked at him. Bernie declared it with total confidence. "You can't beat me." His face was bright as the sun, as if being cornered up to now was just a front. Like he'd anticipated all this, or that we were all dancing in the palm of his hand. It was clear what had happened. Only an ultimate skill can counter an ultimate skill, and thanks to this ironclad rule, Benimaru's attack was cancelled out. Now Bernie was the victorious one, while Benimaru's face twisted in frustration. He must have thought that if his unique skills didn't work, his baseline swordplay would, but reality was crueler than that. His sword did reach Bernie, but once again his armor blocked it, preventing the blow from being fatal. Even worse, whatever damage it did deal, Bernie promptly cast recovery magic to heal up. At this rate, the only way for Benimaru to win was with a killing blow. He was the better sword fighter, but Bernie had the ultimate skill, making this an extremely uphill battle for him. He was, really, for the first time I knew, in a truly tough situation, and before long, Bernie had him on the defensive. As Benimaru was put in that tight spot, Chloe was facing an unexpectedly tough bout of her own. In terms of sheer ability, Chloe was by far the best. But Jiwu, a specialist at striking her foes' weak points, didn't even try to wage a typical sword fight against her. She was putting up isolating barriers to keep Chloe from calling for backup, conjuring toxic dark mist to blind her, and using every trick she could to give herself a situational advantage. That sort of thing wouldn't work on the masked Chloe. But with Jiwu so intent on escaping her at every moment, she was having trouble catching her. Jiwu kept running away. Chloe kept chasing her. The result was a very prolonged battle. But hey, unlike Benimaru, Chloe's got an ultimate skill, right? If she was more powerful than I was, I didn't think she was about to lose to Jiwu. So I didn't pay them particularly close attention, assuming that everything was cool with Chloe. But apparently things weren't gonna go that easy. By the time Benimaru was thrown on the defensive, Chloe was facing some real trouble as well. Chloe called after Jiwu. "You sure love scampering away from me, huh?" Jiwu answered without taking the bait. "Of course, your sword's too dangerous. I have a hunch it could penetrate my defenses." Jiwu was cautious. She was facing an unknown in Chloe, and she kept her head as she tried to deal with her. Chloe's absolute severance was a unique skill, but for some reason, it boasted so much power that you could feasibly call it an ultimate if you wanted to. Maybe Jiwu was just being modest when faced with its power. But no, a Legend-class suit of armor definitely wouldn't stop it. She even dealt damage to Veldora with it, so I'd have to say Jiwu was taking the right strategy here. Chloe pressed her. "You know running around all day won't beat me, don't you?" Jiwu's answer was all mission. "I can't deny that, but that's not the problem. I'm not here to win. I'm here to protect Bernie, and once he kills that ogre, we're both going to kill you next." I wasn't about to take that sitting down, but then Jiwu started to get real tricky with me. Every time I tried to join in the fray, she'd start lobbing attacks at Labyrinth City behind me. The quarantined capital city was safely ensconced behind Masayuki and the others, but if any magic landed on them, I couldn't guess how much damage it'd cause. Even worse, Jiwu was asking for Bernie's assistance. Jiwu called out, "We've got too much unexpected trouble, Bernie. This woman's a lot more dangerous than I thought. She's too much to deal with alongside the Demon Lord Rimuru at the same time, so I want to play it safe. I need you to help me attack Labyrinth City to keep him from intervening." Bernie agreed at once. "Understood. I'll give you a hand when I'm able." With Bernie joining in the potshots, that immediately doubled my burden. Masayuki and Jinrai had resurrection bracelets, so they'd be fine even in the worst-case scenario. But Labyrinth City was packed full of unwitting citizens. This was meant to be a safe space for them, and they wouldn't all be wearing bracelets at all times. The adventurers evacuated in here would have each had one, but not your average goblin on the street. So now I had to not only keep the guys behind me safe from stray magic blasts, but also deal with Jiwu's and Bernie's harassment. All their attacks on the city were of the ranged type, so I could just swallow them up with Belzebuth, Lord of Gluttony, and that was that. But now I no longer had the free time to help Chloe at all. Like, seriously, man. Good thing then that Chloe came here in time to help us out. If it were just Benimaru and me here, we might have been defeated long ago. After all, Benimaru was only barely able to stave off Bernie's attacks. One false move and he might be overwhelmed by them entirely, making it hard to keep his foe from attacking the city. The edge he had in absolute ability was what allowed him to keep this battle going, really. A single direct hit from Bernie's onslaught would instantly kill him, but Benimaru handled it all with a calm, studied demeanor. The tables might be turned skill-wise at the moment, but I still thought Benimaru deserved a round of applause. Still though, I thought of all these guys as little more than roadies for Masayuki, but they had some wild hidden abilities. In a way, the fact that they had deceived me for so long showed just how good they really were. Even Luminous didn't give these guys the time of day when she met them at the festival. I guess I can't blame myself or Raphael for overlooking them either. Regardless, I'd say we were in a pretty dire situation right now. In addition to everything else, my thought communication with Ramirez was cut off, so we were now forced to overcome this assault all by ourselves. And I guess Chloe could sense my anxiety because she chose that moment to take a gamble. That led to an unforeseen blunder. Chloe announced it like she had no intention of losing. If that's how it is, time to pull something out of my sleeve. If she had something to get us out of this situation, I'd really love to see it right about now. But for some reason, I had a bad premonition about it. For a single moment, the world went dark on me. All movement stopped, and I felt like someone had tied me up with rope. Unable to comprehend what happened, I realized I had experienced this feeling sometime before. It was when Guy and Chloe were fighting, I think. Raphael spat out a warning.
Report. The subject Chloe Aubert's life energy is confirmed to be falling. She appears to have failed to control her skill.
This was how having time stopped felt, I realized. Just as I did, I noticed Chloe was back in child form. Whoa! Chloe? Chloe gasped. Oh, no way, this power's too inefficient for me to handle right now. Chronoa scolded her through the same desperate exchange. I told you it was too hard to control for long periods of time. I didn't know what happened, but it was clear Chloe's trick up her sleeve failed big time. Even worse, it gravely compromised Chloe's ability to fight. I guess she couldn't fully control Yog-Sothoth after all. She seemed to have it pretty well mastered in the last fight with Guy, but I guess that was mostly Guy's own power at work, with Chloe simply responding to it. That was still impressive enough though. If she wasn't able to move in that time-stopped world, it would have been a one-sided whipping Guy dealt to her. But a practice battle is different from a real one. It looked like Chloe could still stop time for a moment, but it consumed a vast amount of energy. The proof was all in her current child form. See, this is exactly why using untested powers on the spur of the moment like this is such a problem. It'd be a completely different story if she had full control over Yog-Sothoth, but not even Raphael had completed its analysis of that move yet, so it was a bad mistake to count on a miracle there. I reached Chloe through thought communication. Yo, Chloe, you okay? Chloe sounded frustrated when she answered. I might be in a little trouble. I can go back to my original form, but it'll take a while before I'm my usual self again. At least things weren't completely dire. Chloe wasn't out of the battle permanently, which was a great relief. Jiwu dismissed the whole attempt. I don't know what you were struggling to do, but you're wasting your time. You can't even figure out your own strength? You're even more of a shambles than I thought. Bernie laughed along with her. Well, that's just who she is. You were just being too careful, Jiwu. Jiwu and Bernie exchanged chuckles over Chloe's mistake. But just then, a voice boomed in my mind like a message from the heavens.
Report. Analysis of the enemy's skills complete.
Damn, that was fast. It still hadn't wrapped up Chloe's Yog-Sothoth yet, but Bernie's and Jiwu's ultimate skills were apparently a piece of cake by comparison. I would have been satisfied if we could have narrowed them down to a specific family of moves even, but this was a happy miscalculation on my part. I asked Raphael in my head, so what's up? Lay it on me.
Report. The subjects Bernie and Jiwu share a great number of similarities in abilities, to the point that they can be considered virtually identical. Unique skills are born from one's personal individuality, and ultimate skills are born when a unique skill is brought past its set limits. But the fact that both of their skills are so similar indicates one conclusion.
Are you saying Bernie and Jiwu borrowed their power from somebody?
Affirmative. The possibility is believed to be very high.
I see. You know, I was thinking this was a little unnatural too. If you want an ultimate skill, that's not the kind of thing you acquire with some half-hearted backyard effort. Even Hinata was stuck at the unique level with her arsenal, and overcomers like Granville and Luminous hadn't awakened any ultimates either. I don't mean to sound like a prick, but these aren't the kind of clearance rack abilities someone at Bernie's and Jiwu's level could just pick up out of nowhere. An ultimate skill borrows a lot of its characteristics from the person possessing it. And while both of them were showing great obstruction and concealment skills, neither was using their power for anything beyond that. I had been on the lookout this whole time thinking they were hiding something, but it looked like they weren't. Raphael summarized the limits.
Affirmative. They are demonstrating absolute superiority over magic and unique skills, as well as complete concealment of their own powers. These are the powers that have been loaned to the subject Bernie and the subject Jiwu. Calculating backward from their energy levels, neither are in any position to exercise more powers than these.
So I was correct when I figured there was nothing left? You never do know how things will turn out until they're over, I thought as I looked at the smiling Bernie and Jiwu. I opened a thought communication to Benimaru and Chloe. Benimaru, Chloe, I found the secret to their power. They're nasty opponents, but they're not unbeatable. I've got an idea along those lines. Can you guys hear me out? They both agreed without a second thought.
Of course. If I could get a good slash in with my sword, I'd have won this long ago. But he's a defensive specialist, and it's incredibly annoying.
Benimaru must have been prepared to keep fighting like this for a long while to come, in order to keep himself from losing. Just keep your eyes on the prize. Don't let your opponent's moves faze you. Diablo and Xion were bound to return sooner or later, and they could go on the counterattack then. That's my samurai general, all right. Calm no matter the situation and totally reliable. Chloe answered next, eager to make up for it. I believe in you too, Rimuru. I want to make up for that mistake, so if you have a winning plan, I'm game for it no matter what. Unlike Benimaru, her fight was one she could have won if she wasn't in such a hurry. Absolute severance could have penetrated Jiwu's defenses, and in a one-on-one battle, the assassin would have been no match for her. Still, this was a good lesson for her. Now we all knew how inexperienced she was with her ultimate skill, but that was something she could work on in the future. I'm sure that's gonna work itself out with practice, so for now I had to focus on ending this battle. Okay, here's the deal, I told them. I want to get Benimaru and me connected with a soul corridor. That way I can lend him some of my powers.
I'd be glad to borrow them. It's somewhat embarrassing to ask for your help here, Sir Rimuru, but anything beats being defeated. I promise I will bring you victory.
Benimaru gladly agreed. That was typical of him. Practicality always came ahead of pride. Besides, if our opponents were tapping into borrowed power too, I didn't see any reason to be ashamed of it. Pound for pound, Benimaru was definitely the better fighter anyway. With that in mind, I applied absolute severance to Benimaru's sword. This boasts pretty much the same performance as Chloe has access to. It's essentially the reverse of absolute defense, so both might be cancelled out when clashed against each other, but against Bernie, this ought to work well enough. So that took care of Benimaru. Now for Chloe. Chloe, Chronoa, listen to me. If you can keep on buying time for us, Benimaru's gonna beat Bernie, I promise. After that, here's how you'll deal with Jiwu. For her, we'd take the opposite pattern. Chloe was back in adult form, but far from her usual self strength-wise. It was better to take a safe approach with her to ensure we could seal the deal. She merely had to survive until Benimaru won, and all would be well. That was my idea, but Chloe cut in. Whoa, wait a minute. I'm not about to lose here or anything. If it's one-on-one, I'm positive we can win. Chronoa backed her up. She's right, Rimuru. Yog-Sothoth kind of fell through our fingers there, but if we get serious with this battle, we're not gonna lose. Chloe and her alter ego were both eager enough. I expected that from them, so I was hardly surprised. I decided to make another suggestion. Okay, then I have one condition, Chloe asked. What? Use Yog-Sothoth one more time. I want this victory to be perfect for you. She went still. Huh? Like you can stop time for a really tiny little bit, but it's too short to work on Jiwu, right? It seemed to me that Chloe was in full control of her skills as long as she didn't go all reckless with them. When I said really tiny little bit, I couldn't tell exactly how many seconds that was, but it probably wouldn't be enough time to hunt down Jiwu and her ultimate skill. That was why she went over the limit like she did. But next time, she ought to be just fine. I'll help you out this time, okay? I'll help with the calculations and stuff and you can try it again. Chloe accepted, still a little uneasy. Well, if you say so, I'm not complaining. Chronoa understood the plan. You're going to open your computational domain to us? We ought to be able to control it then, definitely. They looked a little anxious still, but, so was I. This was Raphael's idea after all. Can you blame me for wondering if this would actually work? Guess I'd believe in the dude. It had to have an inkling this would work out, so I had to just trust Raphael and act accordingly. Then Chronoa raised another issue.
But I'm still not sure there's enough energy, she warned. I can get into combat form, but I haven't recovered enough to stop time yet. Even if your aid makes it more efficient, the current Chloe won't be able to use the skill right at all.
I was kinda wondering about that too, actually. I knew I was planning to lend them my power and stuff, but would that suffice? Raphael answered with rare firmness.
Affirmative. It is not a problem.
Good. Nice to get a firm yes there. I'm sure it's got some kind of great plan, so I'll stop bothering it for details. That won't be a problem, I told Chronoa. If you don't have enough, I'll back you up. Or Raphael would anyway. But it's not worth explaining everything here, so I'll just take this opportunity to look way cool instead. That was enough to secure Chronoa's agreement. All right, Chronoa said. I'll sign on then. Time to show these two what they've got coming. So we had a plan. It was time for the counterattack. Benimaru changed his offensive style. Until now, he had been using a static sword stance, but after being granted absolute severance, he switched to a dynamic style. Static, or Seino Tachi to borrow the samurai parlance, is a sword technique where the attacker allows their opponent to make the first move, with the focus on counterattacks. The dynamic style, or Dono Tachi, concentrates more on offense than defense. You're basically trying to attack and win the day with a single strike, overwhelming your foe and never giving up the initiative. This change in styles definitely registered with Bernie. Surprised, he went on the defensive. Now the tables were turned once more, but at this point he still looked relaxed and in control. That vanished in an instant. Bernie had seemed so in control only because he was confident that Benimaru's sword wouldn't work against him, and all evidence so far had backed him up. But all that was in the past. Failing to keep up with the flurry of slashes and strikes, Bernie left himself open, and the fatal blow was aimed right for that moment. Bernie's last reaction barely got out. That? I wasn't sure if he was gonna say that's crazy or whatnot. But either way, that strike hewed straight through Bernie's torso and chopped him in half. Continuing with the same motion, Benimaru arced his sword's trajectory upward like a curving river, separating Bernie's head from the rest of his body. Hence why Bernie couldn't finish that last voiced reaction before his death. Man, talk about overwhelming. Benimaru totally knocked that out of the park. You know, I told Benimaru, if you went with that momentum from the start, you could have won easy, couldn't you?
No, if I tried to do that, I would have broken my weapon. That armor was no joke, I thought, so I tried to avoid putting too much strain on my sword. It was a very awkward way to fight for me.
That was awkward? Because he sure looked pretty majestic out there. I will agree that dynamic suits him better than static, though. Now I was absolutely sure Benimaru outclassed Hakuro. He was a better physical specimen to start with, but now his skill level was about the same as Hakuro's or higher. Once he gets serious about fighting, he's just incredible. I mean, not 1 minute after going on the counterattack, Bernie was dead. Alu, meanwhile, Chronoa sounded pained as she tried to trigger the skill. Oh, I knew we wouldn't have enough energy, but right after that, Raphael remained calm.
Report. There is no problem.
That calm voice was accompanied by the sound of an agonizing scream, or at least it felt that way in my mind. What was up with that? I had the sneaking suspicion that might have been her, actually. In fact, I was sure of it. Hearing it sure made me feel depressed. It was just so pathetic. I hadn't done anything bad, exactly, but I was the one causing it. Maybe it is my fault then. I'm gonna have to treat Chloe to some pudding and apologize to get back on her good side. But anyway, that was the end of our energy problems. The next thing I knew, the world stopped and Jiwu was reduced to a pile of dust. So yeah, that was how we beat Bernie and Jiwu. But now Raphael was taking a more forlorn tone with me.
Report. The subject Bernie and the subject Jiwu are confirmed to be alive. I had forgotten about the existence of the resurrection bracelets.
Huh? Ah, no biggie. Pretty rare for Raphael to make a careless error like that, though. In fact, this may very well be the first time ever. Oops, I should have broken their bracelets while I had the chance, I said.
They weren't wearing bracelets.
Chloe backed him up. Yeah, I had my eye out for those, but they didn't have any on. Oh, guess Benimaru and Chloe were being a lot more careful than I was, remembering the bracelets and checking to see if they were there. Maybe I was the careless one here. I sincerely doubted that Raphael simply overlooked them, so I guess Bernie and Jiwu got one up on us. Masayuki, who had been quietly watching this the whole time, suddenly spoke up. Ah, about that. Jinrai explained for him. To tell the truth, we all kinda saw you as the enemy, so we never really took those bracelets of yours seriously, like we weren't gonna look a gift horse in the mouth or anything, but... He flipped up one of his pants legs and amazingly I saw him wearing a resurrection bracelet on his ankle. Yeah, that's the bracelet, I said. Jinrai knew exactly how absurd it looked. I know. But like, whether we trusted it or not, it's still a magical item, right? So we figured it'd work just as well no matter where you put it on. Bernie suggested it as kind of a little rebel thing we could do. Apparently, Bernie had anticipated this outcome enough that he took steps to address it. Benimaru was scratching his head in frustration, and Chloe was seeming pretty pouty too. I was sure she looked disgusted under her mask. Given the situation, I really didn't think Raphael could have done anything about this. Jiwu's barrier isolated us from the rest of the world, so we couldn't talk to Ramirez. I think I could have telepathically communicated with Veldora, but I doubt I could have explained the situation to him with much accuracy. Besides, if you thought about how much work Raphael had to do there, it was just mind-boggling how much parallel processing it was up to. Granting Benimaru absolute severance, helping Chloe and Chronoa with Yog-Sothoth, maintaining my own absolute defense, analyzing Bernie's and Jiwu's abilities. The list goes on and on. Given all that, who among us could have predicted that a bunch of idiots would put resurrection bracelets on their ankles? Well, no helping that, I guess.
Indeed. Let's just forget about it. I've already assessed their strengths, and I'm positive I would win a rematch. If someone like me challenges them, that might be a different story. But I'm sure we can find a way.
That was Benimaru's conclusion, so he and I both decided to drop the matter. Anyway, Bernie and Jiwu were out of the picture. Not being able to off them for good was a blunder. But Benimaru, Chloe, and I promised each other we'd forget about it, so it didn't really count, right? Masayuki and Jinrai looked pretty shocked about their friend's betrayal, but I was sure they'd do their best to recover. I thought about this as I watched them trudge back to their jobs assuaging the vampires. The war was still going on. I felt kinda bad for those two, but frankly, I didn't have time to worry about them. So I decided to let Chloe take care of them, and then Benimaru and I went back to the control center. Now the labyrinth should be free of all hostile elements. But just as I thought that the final ground battle was all that was left to handle, we discovered that a few people were in the room already.
Ooh, Rimuru! You sure gave me a scare, you know. We fell out of contact.
Indeed you did. I was far from worried, of course, but I did want to complain to you about it a little. Ramirez insisted we come down here too, so we hurried. We walked on over to check up on you.
Ramirez looked concerned. Veldora was being pompous as ever. He was currently whining about how I stole his energy out of nowhere. But it was so obvious that he was seriously worried about me. He's cute that way, isn't he? I asked Raphael silently. So, Raphael, can you at least ask for a bit of permission before borrowing Veldora's power?
That is behind us now, so it is not a problem.
Behind us? You haven't been using his energy on the sly for a while now, have you? If so, Veldora sure must be used to it. But either way, I've done him wrong. I'll have to get him some snacks later and maybe a few new manga volumes too. Sorry I worried you guys. Still, Veldora, I can contact you from pretty much anywhere, so if I get in trouble, I'll be counting on you.
You can, Master?
Oh! Ahem. That's why I told you not to worry.
Ramirez was awestruck. Veldora, probably hiding his embarrassment, decided to act all high and mighty as he changed the subject.
But enough about that. If you're fine now, can you go listen to those guys for a bit?
Following Veldora's gaze, I found Treyni, Soe, and a suspicious-looking man tied up with rope. I noticed that the first two were there before now. But what was up with that other dude? Treyni was currently chugging some fruit juice, looking utterly exhausted but otherwise unhurt, so I let her be. Instead, I glanced towards Soe, hoping he'd clue me in.
Well, once I reached the site Moss told me about, I found this man fighting Treyni. His name is Laplace, and he's a nemesis of ours.
So it was Laplace under that rope? He looked pretty beat up, but not dead, at least.
Why is he still alive?
Benimaru asked it coldly. He wasn't even trying to hide his murderous rage, which was rare for him.
I tried to kill him, but he kept insisting he had something important to talk to you about, Sir Rimuru.
That has to be a trap.
Benimaru took out his sword once more. The moment he did, the limp Laplace leaped up like a caterpillar. Pretty nimble move, as silly as it looked. I couldn't help but laugh. Laplace yelped from the floor. Wait a minute, man. Stop laughing and keep your people away from me.
You'd better watch your tone.
Now Soe was raging too. But that was still nothing compared to Benimaru, who was moments away from cutting the guy in half. I stepped in to calm him down for the time being. Calm down, all right? We're in the middle of a truce with Yuki, remember? If you brought him all the way here, we could at least hear him out. Soe nodded at this. Being able to keep his moral compass straight despite his rage showed just how patient he could be. Benimaru, realizing he was wrong, put his sword away. So what's your story? Laplace complained, still bound and battered. Damn, you guys are super scary. That gal over there refuses to listen to me and she's gotten way stronger since last time too. The other dude's a little more sensible, but his eyes are just so cold, you know? And that one...
Huh?
Don't start with that, Benimaru. You're revealing too much of your old self there. Clearing my throat, I tried to steer us away from this gloomy atmosphere. Laplace read the room correctly and hurried on. So anyway, Yuki asked me to give you a message. He signaled his appreciation to me as he began explaining why he was there. He could have just done that to begin with, I thought, but I lent him an ear anyway. Laplace finally reached the actual warning. And that's the long and short of it. So basically, you guys better keep an eye out for Bernie and Jiwu, got it? Benimaru and I looked at each other in silence. You could have told me a little bit earlier, dude. According to Laplace, Yuki had a guy named Demrata working for him. He was one of the head bosses of Cerberus, a secretive crime ring. After a tip from Ghidorah and a little investigation, it came out that Demrata was suspected of attempting to assassinate Ghidorah, although Yuki hadn't given him any such order. I say suspected, but it was almost certain actually. Having made that judgment, Yuki reviewed Demrata's past actions, and in the process he discovered a few more suspicious things. This led him to believe that Masayuki's party members, people arranged for him by Demrata, might have had some kind of ulterior motive. In a rush, he assigned Laplace, who was just back from another mission, to relay the message to me. As Laplace's story unfolded, Treyni began to look visibly paler over time. Now I knew full well why Laplace hadn't told me the news earlier. Well, I told Laplace, if that's what the story is, you gotta give it to me sooner, all right? Laplace protested immediately. I tried. I told her over and over again that it's really important, but she was all, ooh, I'd never trust you and all that. Never even gave me the time o' day.
It's because you're so fishy, all right? And besides, I still bitterly recall the last time you escaped me, so I was determined not to make the same mistake again.
Laplace snapped back. Well, you kinda used a little too much force, lady. I kept shouting at you about how this was work-related stuff and I'm super serious about it, but it was all, wah, shut up, I don't care what you say. You didn't listen to one word from me, did you? Seeing this ugly argument unfold before me answered all my questions. So you've been fighting this entire time? Laplace looked seriously disgruntled. Yeah, like, eesh, cut me a break. By this point, this entire time would have been a good 10 days or so. I'd be a little sullen about it too, I think.
I'm so deeply sorry.
Realizing how badly she jumped to conclusions, Treyni apologized to me, her face bright red. But would any of us here blame her for it? If you asked any of us to trust Laplace a little bit more, we'd think you were out of your minds. I mean, he's still acting all fishy. I don't think you should judge a book by its cover, but he's constantly up to one suspicious caper or another. You'd have serious problems if you ever trusted a villain like him. So maybe Treyni made an honest mistake, but I'd never blame this one on her. Benimaru, inches away from lopping Laplace's head off a moment ago, looked incredibly uncomfortable, as did Soe. I'm rather surprised he put up with Laplace long enough to bring him here, actually. Well, what's done is done. Let's just stop worrying about it and let bygones be bygones, all right? It was in the past now, and I didn't want to keep it on my mind. So let's just talk our way out of this. I had a battlefield to focus on, and there was no telling what would happen up there until the end. With this in mind, we turned our attention back to the big screen. Bernie and Jiwu slipped away thanks to those ankle bracelets, and Treyni's misunderstanding with Laplace sure did not help. But we cannot dwell on it now. The main battle is far from over. Next up from AI Anime and Manga, Caligulio tries to pull the Empire back. Agira gives a deadly ultimatum, and Geld holds the line like an iron wall. If you are enjoying the series, please leave a like, drop a comment, and subscribe so you do not miss the next part. Use the end screen to jump to the next episode or the full playlist. Patreon supporters get upcoming episodes early and help cover the narration, subtitles, thumbnails, and rendering that keep this project moving. See you next time.